Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, and welcome back to the monthly horror reviews. This time I'll be going over the movie Eli. In this movie, we follow, Eli, who seems to be suffering from some sort of condition where if he heads outside, he will burn up. And the mom has him living in this sort of bubble-like containment, I guess I'll call it. And she's trying to care for him, and whenever he heads out, he has to put on this hazmat suit. So they head out to go to get a room somewhere, and these outsiders are mocking him as they rip a hole in his suit, and he immediately starts to feel this suffering, this burning. And the mom is trying to calm him down and does so successfully as they patch the hole up. So, as he flicks them off, he goes off and he does a little bit of attempting of magic. And mom says, like, oh, you did the thing, and then he's like, sort of like faking it or whatever. And on their travels, he sees this red-haired girl whose name is Haley, and they pass her by. And they come across this mansion where Eli is told that is going to be the place where they're going to heal him. So he goes in alone first, and he meets these three doctors, the main one being Dr. Horn. And after the parents exchange their pleasantries, Eli is promised, is given the promise that he will be better. And, but there is stuff afoot as time goes by, and then there is a figure in the airlock, and no one else sees it. So Eli is already beginning to see things. I think this is after he got like a little bit of a treatment. But he is allowed outside of his suit at this point, the hazmat suit. And he's able to embrace his mom and stuff like that. It's very touchy-feely stuff. And he's able to express his emotions out in the shower. So, you know, it builds who this character is. Very clearly has not been able to express these things. Touch being the primary one. We also hear throughout the movie that the house makes all these weird noises, and it's just, there's some sort of excuse for it. It's like an old house or whatever, according to Dr. Horn anyway. So Eli looks out the window and sees these these little markings appear, so more supernatural things are happening moment by moment. So he goes to sleep with his mom, and the Dr. Horn, claims that these are just hallucinations that are just a part of the treatment. So of course there's a little bit of I don't know. We of the audience are primarily following Eli, and it does seem to be of a more supernatural taking. So the doc takes one of the doctors, not the main one, takes his picture randomly, and he's kind of curious as to why they would do that, and they don't answer him. And he's trying to figure out why. He's like, oh, why are you doing that? And then one of them is like, asking him, like, what do you think happens to those who question things? And then he, in his naive nature, he says he'll get answers. So, anyways, Dr. Horn shows that she's going to, or tells him that she's going to inject him with a virus to destroy what is already destroying his body, which, if you know anything about real life, is something that happens, you know. It's bizarre, but that's how it works sometimes, is that viruses kill other viruses, and then, yeah. But anyway, we cut to Dr. Horn very briefly, and I don't remember what she was doing, but we see that Eli has another nightmare slash hallucination, again according to the doc, and he wakes up. He sees Haley smashing these little rocks against his window, so he decides to head out and to this like balcony where there's this closed window where he can talk to her. So he introduces himself, and she does a little bit of fire magic for him. And Haley at that point explains the grace of how magic works. Is like, if you tell someone how it works, it kind of ruins the illusion. Very true. So Eli sees some house lights flicker, and he's kind of going, after the fact, after he leaves. Seeing this girl ghost appear, and every time he like flashes the light, it like removes it, and then it comes back, and it's an incoming ghost. And a shadow appears, and all of this stuff is happening. So we see that when he's getting grabbed, it turns into the dad, and we cut then after they calm him down to them praying, the parents praying anyway. So, of course, there's a little bit of more discourse between the father and Eli, and what he saw. He's trying to explain that he saw this ghost, and of course, the father is not believing that. So, when he's alone again, a mirror moves, and while he's back in the bed and he's trying to read more about magic and what Haley did, and he moves back up to the curtain, and he writes his name in the window, and the ghostly figure changes the E. It removes the E, and it puts it at the end to spell lie. So now things are getting a little bit interesting, as now there is an implied lie. And he's seeing more of these figures in the mirror and etc. Once again dragged by his dad to calm down. And we see that after the fact, Dr. Horn says to him anyways, or I think to the both of them at that point, that it will be harder before it gets better. And then we go to another sequence of him getting sort of a treatment, which the back of his head is shaven, and they go into his brain a little bit, and they give him a little something there. And then we cut to the family having dinner after the fact. And at this point, Eli wants to leave. He wants nothing more to do with it. So the dad's like, hey, we either leave or we stay. So Eli's like, okay, we'll stay, whatever. It's fine. So after that, he meets back up with Haley. But he hears more voices before they can continue talking. So he goes to check that out instead. He swipes off some blood, and then he swipes away a fake figure coming towards him, and then it's like another, and he closes himself off into the closet, this closet that is in his room. And after waiting a bit, he heads out and he sees that the word lie has been written over and over at this little cabin or closet. So he heads over to Haley trying to explain that, and we see that they're getting ready for Procedure 3, and Haley talks about the last boy that was there and how he was never seen again, so that causes Eli an amount of stress to try to figure out what is going on. and lights are flickering, and he's dragged away by an entity into the room, into the operating room. And Dr. Horn pulls him in. And Eli mentions the previous patient, Perry, to Dr. Horn, and she's like, "Oh, no. And he's getting fed up, so he breaks some glass, and he ends up bleeding himself out to pass out. And he wakes up in the bed. Meanwhile, the mom is starting to get a little bit suspicious herself, and she overhears Dad talking to Dr. Horn about something, and we don't know what it is. It's very suspicious. So the mom takes these pills that the doc said to give to the son, and she goes forth to him, giving him said pills. And she believes that he did see things, but that they were fiction, so she's kind of on board of them being hallucinations at this point. And thus we see him take the pills. And as he's going through that, he looks back at the lie, and he looks at it upside down because he's on his bed, and he sort of twirls around, and he sees the number that it causes to make is 317 within the cabin. And when his mom leaves, he spits out the pill to make sure that has nothing to do with whatever it was going to do. And we see Dr. Horn probably do the most suspicious thing we see her do, is burn the hazmat suit. And that's where I knew something was up at this point, but I didn't know exactly where it was going. I just knew that there was something off about this whole thing. The whole lie thing kind of interrogated it, but it really became a thing where she burned the suit. It did seem like that would be the thing that would probably start to get more attention. Anyway, so he goes on his own, and he checks in with Haley about the code, and he sets out to gain access after explaining and figuring out that it was a code. And he enters this locked part of the house, so he gains access to some files that show that the previous patients have died. Meanwhile, the mom talks to the husband about Dr. Horn and about being a little bit worried about these things, about all these other people, all these other kids that were treated, and if they really did make it, and so on and so forth. And her asking questions leads to her suspicion of the husband lying to her about this. Their arguing causes Dr. Horn to wake up, so that causes Eli to hide because she's in that area. And he finds a locked cabinet, and as I mentioned, he reads about the patients, the 3 that were killed before him. And we see another doc head into that room after all of his scuffling about. And the mother is getting ready to leave. She wants nothing more to do with it. She's packing up. Meanwhile, Eli finds his dad, and he's trying to explain everything about all the kids that died and so on and so forth. And then the dad pulls him in and then injects him with the knockout needle, I guess I'll call it, or at least like some form of that. And we see from outside a bang happens, and then we see one of the cars that were out there start to burn up, and that causes them to panic a little bit. So Eli manages to break out even after being needled, to break out and run away from everyone. And literally everyone. The doc, his father, he's not trusting any of them after what the father just did. And he locks himself in this room, in this secret basement where we saw very briefly. And he finds out that these doctors were previously nuns. And there's this cracked tomb in the cellar. And thus Eli is locked in. And everyone leaves him, including the mom. The mom was there, she leaves too. And Eli passes out. So the mom checks in, and it turns out that she also lied. She lied about his disease, which is a little bit odd. It definitely tilted my head until the actual reveal of what is happening. And Eli attacks his own mom, and he flees off from her. She wants nothing to do with her either right now, at that moment. So he grabs a fire extinguisher, and meanwhile, the mom is left there. She takes out this blade. So she's remaining in that little cellar. Meanwhile, Eli is grabbed. And while he gets grabbed, the mom finds the corpses. And now she knows the full truth of what the doctors are doing. We see the corpses of the previous kids that were all killed by these nuns. So the mom comes in with Dr. Horn, threatening her. And the dad is trying to stop her. He's telling her to give him the knife, and she does so. Pulls the mom away, gives the knife to Dr. Horn, but right before she tries to stab Eli, she is suddenly stopped by some sort of force. And we see that Eli builds up this sort of energy from within and is able to make or force the doctor to stab himself. And then the full-blown thing comes off. Eli's eyes turn red as we see his capabilities of being able to blast them away. He lifts up the three doctors and he tortures them, burns them even, as far as that. The dad tries to seize the knife. He's trying to go for it. Eli stops the dad and pops his head, killing him instantly. And as Eli starts to walk, we see behind him fire is starting to rise up behind him. And he's able to make his way outside, and the mother sort of very cautiously sort of following him behind. We see Haley talking to him as he exits the building, and her eyes turn red considering. And she explains that they are both half demon, and we see that truth come from the mother as well. She explains when they're both in that little corpse area that she went to the devil to get a son, so she was given a half demon child, and that this Haley girl is also a half demon child. And that the previous kids were also half-demon children, when including none other than Lucifer. And I believe there was one other that had some sort of religious context, but I don't remember what her name was exactly. So Haley says, again, that she couldn't have helped, and she explains that their father, so their siblings too, Haley and Eli, I guess, that their father, being the devil, wanted to make sure that his demons were the top of the line and that this was some sort of test. Eli Haley sort of says, do you trust your mom? She's there with them at this point. And he sort of just hugs her and says, whatever, or, so just brings her along, into this car. It's a really messed up sort of black car, but they head into the car. Haley asking Eli if he wants to meet his true dad, the devil, and he kind of just, I guess, nods or something. And she starts to drive the car away. And that was Eli. It follows a pretty starting good start of like this boy going through this whole bubble situation, and I didn't know where it was going from that point, obviously. I didn't know that this was going to suddenly turn into a demonic thing. I thought this was going to be more about, like, the horror of, like, what doctors are capable of doing or something like that. I don't know. But no, they took that turn, and you know, it is a very, it always, to me, is a very interesting discussion about whether or not a sudden turn in a movie, in any given movie, is, you know, is executed well. Because more often times than not, than from what I've seen, to me, there have been a lot more failures in this regard than successes. And I think they gave some good hints along the way. The first one that really made me raise an eyebrow, definitely the first obvious one, was the doctor burning the hazmat suit, and then I kind of thought back to other elements about the whole lie thing in general. So there were definitely some sort of hints along the way, and I do feel like if you can provide those hints and they can sort of lead you into that direction, I think doing this kind of twist tends to work a little bit better than other examples that I can think about where they just suddenly decide to change something. And what's great about it is that the hints aren't necessarily pointing and saying that this is the thing. It's that it could lead you to there if you can pick up on all of them and kind of click it in your head of like, oh, okay. And again, the kids' names, at least two of them, had very biblical sort of implications to them, so there was also that as well. So yeah, definitely some hints along the way. Some pretty generic jump scare stuff. And, you know, that's whatever to me. I find where the movie went to be a little bit more fascinating. I find the character changed to be a little bit more fascinating than that stuff, so I'd give this movie a 6 out of 10. I do think that they could have tightened up on some of the other areas. You know, I don't think they needed a jump scare as much, perhaps, but, you know, it is what it is. I don't think that they were necessarily all that bad, because the ghosts weren't necessarily bad. Well, relatively to the character that we are following, they weren't necessarily bad. They weren't trying to do bad to him. They were trying to show him this truth of what he is, etc., etc. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Again, there are some other obvious cliches of like, oh, these other characters don't believe said character because of age, or the other scenario, the doctor sort of building up on that lie, etc., etc. So, you know, it is what it is. So, that is my review of Eli, and if you enjoyed it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.